So there we were a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday afternoon, pleasant enough, at my partner's parents' house, having a nice relaxed cup of tea. The kids are playing in the garden with their granddad. Imagine it, it's a lovely scene. Suddenly, one of the kids runs in and says, "Granddad's fallen over and can't get up." So we all leg it out there, and there he is, Dave, Granddad, lying on the patio, fallen down. A bit of an all-round sportsman this time. Dave was teaching his grandson, his 8-year-old grandson, a bit of defensive football, trying to teach him to be sort of, a bit more light on his toes. And this would have been okay, but doing it in his biggish boots on an uneven patio at the age of 82 might raise a few red flags. Anyway, there he was, and from my perspective, kind of the moment I saw him, there was no question that how he'd landed and the degree of pain he had and immobility he had, that was going to be a broken hip. Now, I'm not saying I have a crystal ball here, but the obvious is pretty hard to miss. Sure enough, he'd done a good job, but the good news is now, before we go any further, a week later, he was back home after a complete hip replacement with probably no more or less sense to him than before, but it all came out okay. Now, in this instance, it was a good outcome, but a broken hip is a really serious issue for older people. In the UK, about 80,000 people suffer a fractured femur every year, and with an aging population, this is only going to increase. Bone density, particularly in women, decreases quite significantly after the age of 50, and by the age of 70, women can lose up to 50% of their bone density, and it's only really a fall or a break that brings this to light. There isn't a routine screening that's out there for this. I mean, you could do, but it's just not available. There's also a whole bunch of things that increase the risk of bone density decrease, such as steroid use, smoking, alcohol, and that's known as access risks. By the way, if you like my material, please like and subscribe. It does help me a lot to be able to keep producing this and watch the end of the video. So please put your comments in as well. It's great to hear from you. So to put this in perspective, older women are more at risk from a broken hip than from breast cancer. And then if you go in a bit further and you crunch the numbers a bit, then in the UK, more women die of the results from a broken hip than die from breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and uterine cancer put together every year. Now, these figures, of course, refer to mortality, but there is also the other aspect, which is morbidity, and that refers to the effect of any original issue and how it affects somebody long term. So this morbidity is pretty significant in the case of hip fracture, and the British Medical Journal showed that only 50% of people return to their previous level of mobility, and around 20% of patients are discharged into residential or nursing home care with all the issues that this presents after a broken hip. Now, for Dave, the interesting thing was that in spite of him being a pretty active man previously, playing golf a couple of times a week and keeping a big garden going, he really struggled to get himself lodged up. In fact, he just couldn't do it. And so what was clear from this is that his upper body strength really wasn't there. So he was really fortunate on a few counts, of course. When he fell, he was surrounded by people who were immediately able to call for an ambulance, keep him warm and supported until they arrived, and also take some pictures. Anyway, that's his kids. He doesn't use a mobile phone. If he'd fallen down outside when there was no one there, if he was on his own, he could have lain there for a long time before he was found. Throw in a bit of rain, the temperature being a bit colder at any different time of year, and any number of different scenarios, and the outcome could have been very, very different. We talk about people when they get older being fit and mobile as we progress in age, but what about the keeping strong, being able to plan for a fall? What are the contingencies? And at my age, it's kind of where I think of. If I'm in a position where I've fallen, I want to be able to move and get myself safe, and it's this kind of thing that we have to start thinking about. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody over the age of 60 should go down the gym and start training training with weights necessarily, although, you know, that's an option. But if right now you are over 60, 65, then how easily, ask yourself the question, could you get up off the floor? And the training is just that. It's function specific. You know, Dean Hammond talks about this, you know, training for the individual. So, you know, get down on the floor and get back up again. How easy was it? Now, do it imagining you can't put your weight on one leg. What's your strategy? How do you go about it? What can you pull yourself up on? What do you need to strengthen in order to do that and do it more easily? If you're strong enough, you know, how about some gentle tricep dips on a chair or supported push-ups? And if you're strong enough still, you know, get down the climbing wall and start some bouldering. And that's really, you know, the thing that I love to do. Right now, you might be pain-free, whatever age you are, you might be pain-free and mobile. But what's the plan? You know, Dave didn't have it in his mind to fall over that day and break his hip, but this is the stuff that happens and it takes us by surprise. You know, we hear people talking about training for a marathon or a sponsored walk, and we've got to realize that we're all training for something. And, you know, if it's just training to be better at sitting on the couch and watching telly, then that's what you'll be ready for. If you plan on being strong enough to get yourself out of trouble when you fall over at the age of 82, then it's not too late or too early to start. Things like standing on one leg, you know, supported if you need to, just, you know, while you brush your teeth or do the washing up, getting more movement into your lower back, bringing your knees gently to your chest. There's no end to what you could start with, but getting down onto the floor and then getting up and working out, you know, how easy that is a start, and do it more often, it'll become easier. Now, there's no guarantee that any of this will stop you falling over, you know, but they might just help to save your life, literally, if you do. As for the falling itself, there's a big element of that that I want to look at next time, so look out for that. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, do all those things you're supposed to do on social media. Let me know what you think. How able are you to get up off the floor? What are your restrictions? Who else might you know that can't do it? And I'll see you next time. By the way, here's a follow-up. This is Dave a couple of weeks after his hip surgery. He's out and about. He's got the garden going and he's absolutely fine. But have a little look as you watch him move around, see how little movement there is in the lower back, and that's a clue. I really want to look at that and sort of talk about some of the implications for that and how those compensations will go, and I'll do that in another video next time. But Dave is great and he's back fighting fit.